Okay, we're going to get started. And much to my happiness, instead of this being me running my mouth on a session on non-compliance case studies, you're going to get to listen to a whole panel who've been working on this in various roles. And everybody knows the infamous Bruce Sneed. Right? Anybody not know Bruce? He's the one over on the end in the purple shirt. This is Jim Emanuel, and Jim Emanuel is from the great state of Illinois, but he did a number of the compliance inspections for the state of Indiana, and so he's got some stories to tell about his experience. We're going to have a session on the whole Indiana project tomorrow. I hope you will be there for that. And this is Amanda Timberlake, I got that right? And Amanda is actually with the Indiana Department of Health, or Indiana State Department of Health, or Indiana Department of Health, depending on which acronym they use. They change like every week or so, I think. Basically, yeah. So I'm going to let Bruce kind of start with some slides here, and we're just going to have a little discussion about some things, and maybe I'll pipe in with some questions from time to time, and you guys can do the same.
So I know that concerns about non-certified competition that put in systems that are non-compliant is a big concern. Our complaints resolved when it's a complaint to the state or a complaint to NRPP. And Dallas can speak to that in terms of what NRPP does to have systems come into compliance. And in any inspection program, that's the goal. We want things to be made right if they're not done right, and for people to correct their actions. Coming from Kansas, it's a certifying state since 2011. Inspections occur. Letters go out. There have been actions against companies and mitigation companies, levying fines, requiring them to go back and fix, address over 100 system installations that were done non-compliant. So when you have certification in a state, it enhances the capacity to level the playing field and achieve what certification is supposed to accomplish. So I was really thrilled when Dallas asked me to put together the course, CE course, that we did yesterday on this inspection certification. And these are 4 case studies provided by Jim Emanuel and Dan West, who did the inspections. So that's what we're going to take a look at. And I'm going to let Jim talk about these things. This reflects the use of the app that Dallas demonstrated in the earlier session, which is, I've had a chance just to use it for demonstration purposes. I think it's going to be a good tool to do this visual inspection. I know I've developed training that looks at the ASHI 68-item checklist that they did on mitigation inspections. And that was arduous, and so I think this is a really good solution. But Jim, I'm just going to let you talk about the process. You did the inspections. So these may be Dan's, maybe yours, but so.
Yeah, so the very first step, well, we got a list, and we contacted the homeowner and asked him if we can go over there and do a free inspection on the radon mitigation system. And we set a time, and we go. And first thing we do is take a picture of the front of the house with the address on it, just to make sure that we were talking about the right house. We meet the homeowner. They take us down to wherever their system is, and we just start visually inspecting. And what we're looking for first is what components does it have? Is it a SSD system? Is it a block wall? Is it a crawl space? We got some slabs, and we identify those things, and we enter them into the app so that the app itself will drop down the right panels for us to answer the questions. So in this case, go back just one more. Yeah. The other part of the program that was added was to see how well the mitigators had communicated back to the homeowners on how their system worked and if how effective the system could be. So we asked if the house was tested, and if it was tested, what the results were. In this case right here, this homeowner did not have any idea and never did a post-test on it. So we'll go here, next one. So we're going to take a look at the label, and there's certain things that need to be on the label. You know, you got to have the date and install. You've got to have some information on state and local phone resources for them. The pressure at the initially, you know, all that's supposed to be documented here on the labels. So we take a picture of that. Go ahead.
Before you go any further, can I interrupt for just a second?
Okay.
Just on the label part, one thing that we discovered at staff, and you probably saw too, is a lot of the labels that you can buy out there that you fill in don't have all of the necessary required fields that the standard wants you to include on the label. So if you don't have a label that prompts you to put those things, or certain things aren't printed on the label, then the label is not going to be compliant with the standard. So you may want to consider perhaps having somebody create labels for you that you don't have to fill in all of the things, just the things that, you know, certain things that are specific and unique to you. There's a vendor here that makes custom labels that are compliant. She's worked on it, so you might want to check that out. I'm not saying she's the only one, but she's actually, you know, working with us as sort of a preferred vendor for the organization. But the labeling is important, as I mentioned earlier. There are a lot of systems out there that have a label on them, but there's nothing on the label other than blank spaces.
Yeah. I'll pick up where Dallas did. I actually used the vendor here, one of the vendors here, to help design my own label for my mitigation system. And we had all the necessary things that aren't coming on the standard ones added, but I was able to customize it, you know, with my business name, where all my guys have to do is just put a date and then put down write down the vacuum pressure. That's all they had to do. And all my licensing and everything was there. My phone number's there. My website's there. And I actually have 3 QR codes at the bottom of my label that they can hit with a smartphone. One is to reschedule a test every 2 years. Another one is to, if they need a service call, it'll generate a service call that will actually go to my office. And then the third one, it gives me a Google review. And when my installers go to leave, you know, if you like what we do, please give us a review. So it is nice to have your own labels. It saves from filling in all those blanks right there. Sorry to go off the rails there. One of the other questions we ask is, the homeowner, how does this work? You know, do you understand what this is doing? You know, and regardless, if most people think that reads radon levels right there. You know, it's under 4, so it must be good. So there was a lot of education on that and explaining how the system worked and what kind of maintenance they need to do or what happens. So we provide a little bit of education for them and stuff. Then there was one thing that basically every one of these systems failed for non-compliance is the active alarm. Nobody had installed the active alarm, which is part of what was adopted in 2019. So everything failed because of that.
Can I stop you right there? So Amanda, why do you think everybody failed that particular requirement?
Is this on? Okay. Basically, our rule had changed in 2020 where we adopted the new ARST ANSI standards, and we used to use the old 1993 EPA standards. So a lot of the just requirements had changed, and maybe there wasn't enough notification on that. Also, the systems were installed in 2019, I guess, too, before we changed the standards. So just standard changes, but.
So did the department put people in jail for not having alarms on the system?
Oh, no.
So
what we did with the results, you'll hear this again tomorrow, we basically divided the deficiencies into critical and non-critical. Critical being like fire, electrical hazards, or the system just didn't work at all, or like re-entrainment concerns. And then the non-critical was like labels, the active monitor, those kind of things. So for the people that had the critical ones, We asked them to go back to the property, contact the homeowner, set all that up, and they needed to submit photographs to the State Department of Health showing basically that everything was fixed that we had asked them to fix, specifically the critical components that ARS identified for us. And then for the non-critical, we just sent out a letter basically describing what the deficiencies were. So again, like the active alarm or like labeling issues. And they just had to acknowledge like, yes, I received this. And they also submitted a plan to us on how they were gonna avoid doing that in the future. So hopefully this next round we'll see a lot less of those kind of issues too, since we had that additional plan requirement, so.
So it was an educational opportunity.
Definitely, yeah.
I'm just going to scroll ahead a little bit.
Okay. All right. This is basically you take a picture of the outside of the property right there. This particular system is non-compliant right there. If you can see that is actual Schedule 20 pipe that was installed there, but was allowed under the old thing. This one right here, it does not have an outdoor electrical box on it. It's supposed to be within 6 feet of line of sight of the fan.
Did you see a lot of those?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, a lot of them that didn't have a disconnect with inside of the fan. Yeah, we see those at NRPP with complaints that come in. That's something we see a lot, along with, that's typically not the thing that caused the complaint, but when we start to ask for records, we see those things. And you know, something else, if you're a mitigator, just be sure that whether it's, you know, the state program or whether it's NRPP, if we're reviewing something that because of the complaint or there was an audit or inspection, then we want to, we're going to ask, or the state's going to ask for your documentation on the job. So if you haven't read the standard, you know, there's certain things you need to have documented in your files and be ready to provide. Yes, mitigation, not just measurement, mitigation. And so we'll ask to see, you know, certain things where we can, you know, get a better picture of what went on. And I'll just quickly say we had a complaint recently where somebody got really upset, the mitigator, who, when we sent them a letter and said, well, here's the complaint. And we put in there from the NRPP perspective, well, it appears, you know, from the complaint that there was a lack of compliance to this, or there may have been this or that. We don't accuse anybody of anything, but we bring up what was brought up in the complaint. And oftentimes we have to get, before we can even write that letter, we have to go get photos from the homeowner who doesn't quite know what to take, and we have to guide them through that. So this is going to help, I think, with a lot of that issue. But the mitigator was really angry and called staff and said, well, you know, why are you picking on me? And why are you accusing me of this? You don't understand really what happened out there. And so what we were trying to do was not to accuse him, but to tell him, well, provide the documentation to go along with the photos that we've gotten from the homeowner where we could better understand, where perhaps, you know, it all made sense instead of an accusatory thing. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, this is our case study number 2 right here. This one has a SSD with a sump, and it looks like we're doing something with a tile drain here. So, and I don't think they knew either when the house was tested either. Again, no labeling. You can see there's nothing there. They just put the sticker there, and they were done. That's termination of the roof right there. This one here, yeah, it's again, this is not a Schedule 40 pipe, no active alarm, bad label. And this one right here, the mitigator, or the inspector wasn't able to get up into the attic. It's one of those where it'll rain snow down on it into their clothes if they did. So
Yeah.
they asked us not to go up there and get that picture.
And this reemphasizes the point that Dallas made. You're mitigating someone's castle. It's their castle. If they won't let you do something, you have to document it. I informed them of what I was supposed to do. They won't let me put the fan, exhaust discharge, but whatever it is, you document. You tried to convince them that it was the right way to go, but it's their castle. They want it done this way. You decide whether you're going to do it or not.
Let's see what we don't have we have a 3-inch as a primary suction point on here, but there's no flexible coupling, you know, which doesn't meet the standard either there. And then at the very bottom, we've got some notes there. You probably couldn't get in the attic. Yeah, there was no date when it was installed. There's just nothing there. I mean, and unfortunately, that's pretty typical there of the labels. There was a lot of blank labels. This is number 3 here, and we're just going to deal with a sub-slab, no sump. And again, they don't know when the house was tested, and they don't know the results. Again, we have a label here that doesn't have much on it at all.
Lots of no's.
A lot of no's, a lot of no's. Here we got some more Schedule 20 pipe. Again, it's non-compliant. No disconnect on the outside.
See a pattern there?
Yes, why? What's your definition of a disconnect? According to the electrical code, outlet is considered a disconnect.
Okay, well, if that would right there be plugged into an outlet that has a weatherproof cover that, you know, would be, you know, rated for that, that's a disconnect. Within 6 feet. But that doesn't mean that you can take that wire, run it through the wall on an extension cord, and then plug it in a wall. Right. It's got to be within line of sight.
Am I mistaken? I think that in the mitigation standard, it says you cannot plug the main into an outlet, although the electrical code does allow it with a weatherproof cover.
I don't know if Gary's in the room. Gary, are you here? He's my reference all the time, but I believe that perhaps on an exterior fan that plugged in may be discouraged, or is it permitted at all? Tell me.
We'll get an answer. That's
We'll
the
get
best
an
way.
answer for that question.
Okay.
I know my electrician says it's allowed by code, but I'm pretty certain
Yeah.
Yeah.
mitigation standard says no.
Okay. So Bruce has the answer. He's had his head into this up to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
So maybe for Bruce, when a homeowner doesn't want you to follow compliance and they say, you know, you can't go in that, you write a statement, maybe initial it or sign it, date it, that kind of stuff. I mean, you got to document that you're on board with this. You just can't say, you know, the homeowner.
Are you talking about the inspection, or are you talking about the mitigation installation?
Inspection, I guess.
Yeah, if you can't get into the attic because it'll be 3 hours to move the closet out, et cetera, and get access.
Yeah.
That's the deal. You can't get up there and see. So that's what you document.
Yeah. If you're
Not only document, but you've got, if the homeowner won't let you, you've got
Yeah.
to get their signature somehow that says,
Yeah.
you know, prove that what you're saying is.
Or you could take a picture of the closet and where the access is and say, yeah, couldn't do it. Right?
Yeah. As far as the mitigation installation, having the homeowner sign off that, you know, they're agreeable with doing something that is against the standard is not acceptable.
Got a question over here.
Just to back up to the electrical, so electrical code in ANCR standards, which is what's being addressed here in the inspection, they may be different. The ANCR standards may be more protective than the electrical code. So under electrical code, a motor of that size, you can use the panel as a disconnect, but for many, 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 many years, the ANCR standards have said that you need to have a disconnect switch or a plug-in within, you know, sight of that product for service disconnect. So there's differences there that we're judging on.
Thanks for clarifying that. Amanda, what was the purpose of the inspection?
A few things. We wanted to make, I don't know, any education that was needed on all these like non-compliant. You'll see that like none of our inspections came back fully compliant. All of them had an issue, one issue or another. Some were like major where they started a fire, where other ones, you know, just labels and stuff, but 0 of the inspections came back fully compliant.
Yeah, I wasn't probably clear with my question.
Sorry.
So what was the standard to which they were being rated?
Okay, yeah, We use the ARST ANSI standards with the checklist, but the systems were installed in 2019, which had the 1993 EPA standards.
So the checklist itself is to verify, and it says clearly on the report, first page, when that's there, that the inspection was to verify whether the system is compliant with the ANSI ARST standard, not electrical code, the ANSI ARST standard.
Nicole, how are we doing it on time? Okay?
We're okay.
Great. So case study number 4, and I just want to do a clarification. You see K-State's logo on there. This is what I took from our course. These came from Jim and Dan in Indiana in terms of the case studies. They don't represent what we did, but we were able to use them in the course.
And those were actually made available to the different trainers.
Yes,
So, yeah.
yeah, other trainers as well.
Okay, this case study here, I'm really happy with this because in this one, they did have their home post tested and they did know the results. So, and that's pretty good for the amount that we saw that did not know. We do have a date here and we might have an initial pressure there. Again, that label there, it doesn't have, if we scroll one a little bit more,
Okay.
which
No.
the quarterly. That's seems next slide, please.
Okay.
Right there where it says the quarterly performance evaluation advisor. I don't know any label or any manometer that you can buy right now that actually has that kind of language on it. I could be wrong, but I don't know any. So you're not going to be compliant unless you make your own label there or find some way around that one there.
Or the people who sell the blank ones, you know, catch up, and perhaps some of them have, and we're not aware, but you may want to ask.
Let's see here. This one looks like it's good. I mean, it's right next to the electrical, but it's not blocking it. That's probably a good one right here. This is our problem right here, sealing the sump. Duct tape's not really a seal right there. And it's not properly labeled down there either. And it does not have a 4-inch access port on it. And we don't have a flex coupling on there. So this one is non-compliant. I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question. It does not look like it. Does I think it might be a secondary, or let's go back and look at the picture again.
Sure.
It's just a sump. That's correct. That's a sump. It's sealing in the 4-inch port and the labeling, not the flexible company. You're correct. Let's see. Okay, so this.
Comments.
Yeah, just the comments again, exactly what we did. And there was, I don't think anybody had no impact, you know, that was able to actually produce something for me.
So those are 4 case studies from Indiana. And then, of course, I couldn't end this PowerPoint without having the Hall of Shame winner. If you caulk the pipe to the solid floor and you run the pipe up through the house and have it go into a flashing on the underside of the roof for the sheathing, but it doesn't go through the roof, it's not a very effective system. So I just had to share that this is our worst case scenario, right? A simulated mitigation system.
Yeah. So thanks guys. So do we have any questions? I think we've got time for maybe a couple. One more, or a question?
Yep. You got one right there?
Yes, speak up. Yeah, what was on the 53 that we did for, or that we contracted with the state to do, we were using a web form, and so that was the original web form that they used, they could access in the field. That was before the app was created, if that. Yeah, and yeah, we have, great, you're spot on, and those are some things that we've worked on in the app as a result of the experience that Jim and the guys did, and Amanda and her team having to, you know, sort through the data and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a you know, we're making improvements and we'll continue to get feedback. In fact, I got a couple of good ideas today just from people who were in this morning, so,
Okay, good.
yes? Yes, our time is over. So we thank you very much.
Get off the
We have
stage.
been given the hook.